Welcome back, it's me, Lou. I'm here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today from McFarlane Toys. In their new Marvel series, we are featuring the Merc with the Mouth, Deadpool himself. Okay, so today is July 30th, 2024. Hot off the heels of the very successful opening of Deadpool and Wolverine, we have this wonderful figure slash statue produced by McFarlane Toys. So I was on my way to work this morning, and every now and then I get the bug to search for toys before I go into the office. So I told myself, you know what, we're gonna hit up Target and see if they have anything. And lo and behold, the toy aisle was completely refreshed, and they put out some of these new McFarlane Marvel figures. They had, in addition to Deadpool over here, they also had the Spider-Man figure. And I was pretty excited when I saw these, but to be honest, the minute I picked them up, I was kind of met with a slight sense of disappointment because they're a little bit smaller than I thought they'd be. But nonetheless, I do think they're pretty cool, especially if you grew up during this time period. Okay, so some months ago on social media, McFarlane unveiled these sort of mini statues, and they're cool because what they're doing is they're taking iconic comic book covers and images and reproducing that in 3D form. So you're taking the first appearance of Deadpool, which is New Mutants 98, and this image is a little bit small. Let me see if I could grab a larger image so you can see it up close. Alright, so this is me I don't like to flex, but every now and then I feel the need to. So here is actually the first appearance of Deadpool. It was New Mutants 98, and I know some of you are probably going nuts and are probably being triggered because I haven't slabbed these yet. So these are actually 5 copies of the first print from 1991. It's New Mutants 98, the first appearance of Deadpool, Gideon, and Domino. And yeah, as you can tell, back in the day, I was kind of a part of that speculative market where everyone thought comic books were going to be worth a lot of money, so buy a lot of them. And not too many of my books are worth anything, but this is one that we gladly still held on to. I mean, I still have all my comic books, but yeah, I never thought back in the day that this would be worth something. So basically, the McFarlane figure is reproducing the pose of Deadpool in his first appearance. And it's kind of neat that they're doing that. In addition to this, they have the McFarlane Spider-Man and also the Jim Lee Wolverine. I'm kind of curious about the Wolverine, but that one seems like it takes a few more liberties than the Deadpool, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So yeah, if you've never seen the first appearance of Deadpool, here it is, New Mutants 98. Alright, so the box is surprisingly very large. I think it might be the same size as McFarlane's Movie Maniacs. So you're looking at this box. It's probably about 7 inches tall, maybe about 8 inches wide or 6 inches wide. And as you can see, it has a graphic cardboard backdrop, big explosion. Deadpool comes on this decorative display base, and even come with a trading card. On the side of the box, it's a reproduction of the image from New Mutants 98. And over here we have, again, the cover inspired by New Mutants 98. Surprisingly and unsurprisingly, they don't give any credit to the artist, Rob Liefeld. If you're a longtime comic book fan, like a hardcore one, you'll remember that way back in the day, McFarlane and Liefeld were tight as ticks, but then there was a certain point in time where they had a falling out, and then they kind of mended fences, and I'm not sure if they're on the outs again, because I remember a few months ago on social media, Liefeld was kind of poking McFarlane, and so who knows. But yeah, this is pretty cool, so let's get this thing out. It'll probably come out easier from the top, I think. So this really speaks to me because I grew up on the X-Men comic books during the 80s and 90s. And this was I think Deadpool, he debuted, I think, during my freshman year in college. For longtime comic book readers, you'll remember that that era of the X-Men was super hot. Chris Claremont and Jim Lee were like making waves on the Uncanny X-Men. Rob Liefeld took New Mutants to like astronomical heights. And with the introduction of characters like Cable, the book was going in a direction that was very favorable by fans. And by the time New Mutants 98 came out, it was already assumed, or it was already known that they were going to wrap things up, I think, with issue 100, and then go into X-Force #1 a few months later. Alright, so here is the figure. First impressions while it's in the tray. Like I said, the figure is surprisingly small. They did advertise this line as being a 6-inch scale action figure, but the box is just ginormous. I kind of feel like, for me, the figure would probably feel like it would have more oomph and more gravitas if the box was actually smaller. I think a smarter strategy would to box these in a package that's about reasonable size to the Marvel Legends stuff, since that's a 6-inch scale action figure also. Because for like mint and box collectors, I think it'd be awesome if you could display these side by side next to the Hasbros. But for whatever reason, McFarlane went with the much larger box. And this looks awesome. Let's take them out. So keep in mind, this is not an action figure. This is more so like a small statue. And if you're a fan of McFarlane Toys, you'll remember that, during a good chunk of the 90s and early 2000s, even up until today, McFarlane did a lot of stuff where they were more so display pieces than actual toys. So this really does fall in line with that. And I'm trying to figure out how to remove this without actually, there we go, damaging the figure. Okay, so we have Wade Wilson himself, Deadpool. And let's get him to focus. There you go. So the thing with this, it does such a great job of recreating the cover artwork. Artist Rob Liefeld had a very stylized drawing style. He's often teased, in the sense that his anatomy wasn't very accurate to like real life. But, it's comic books, so, there's something to be said about his style and his success, especially during this time period. And let's examine the figure a little bit up close. So, one thing that I find very odd is that this figure is very true to form in the sense that it really, really does represent Deadpool as he appears on the cover of New Mutants 98. Whereas if you've seen photos of the Wolverine figure or statue that's coming out, they kind of took some liberties because they actually gave his costume some texture. Now this one, the costume doesn't have any texture. It's just kind of faked with the cross-hatching and the emulation of like comic book ink lines on the body, which is cool because it gives it a somewhat more authentic comic book look. What I'm hoping that in the near future is that they give us maybe like an artist edition where it's all gray, because I think there's a lot of potential here for like customizers and kit bashers to do fabulous things with this. Like there's a part of me kind of feels like if I came across a second copy of this, I'd probably just prime it gray and just repaint it. But it's really cool. If you're one of those people that are into like anime statues, like the stuff put out by Bandai and Banpresto, if you're into like Dragon Ball Z or One Piece, they have those beautiful PVC statues. This might be your speed, because there are a lot of fans out there that they do like collecting, comic book memorabilia, but it's not always action figures. Some people are really big into collecting props, replica weaponry, helmets and masks. And, there's a good chunk of people out there that are into statues. In the late 90s and early 2000s, we had company like Bowen Designs producing some wonderful comic book themed statues. Same with other companies like Graffiti Designs. But yeah, this is fantastic. So if you're curious about the scale of this, here is a Marvel Legends figure produced by Hasbro. This is a 6-inch scale action figure. And as you can see, they look pretty good next to each other. And I do dig the decorative display base. It's kind of cool. It kind of reminds me of the stuff put out by Diamond Select in their Marvel Select line. I'm a fan of the Marvel Select stuff. The sculpting and detailing on those figures and their decorative bases is always, for me, it always wows me. And this is really neat. You know, this is something that, like I said, if you're not into action figures, but if you're a big fan of Deadpool, maybe put this in your den or at your office or in your man cave, or, you know, bookend it on the shelf. It's fantastic. Here's another Marvel Legends figure. We have Darwin. So yeah, I kind of feel like these are awesome figures, but I think the packaging strategy was off. I think they could have made a much bigger impact if they put these like in boxes that are comparable to the size of a Marvel Legends. So yeah, it's a great looking figure. Here's a McFarlane figure, you know, if you're curious about the scale. There's a part of me that kind of wishes that, you know, McFarlane got the license just to produce, you know, 1/10 scale action figures. But, you know, that kind of creates a conflict of interest with Hasbro. You know, Hasbro's kind of like has the master license on producing 6-inch Marvel figures. And, you know, they're in direct competition with Hasbro, so. But yes, I think it's a fantastic product put out by McFarlane. I'm really hoping they stick to this because there's so many wonderful comic book covers I'd love to see recreated. So many moments in comic book history that I'd like to see captured in like 3D form. And this is just fantastic. You know, he has the very Rob Liefeld-esque gun. So it's beautiful. He has the dual katanas on the back. They're kind of a little bit warped, but that's forgivable. Yeah, so overall, it's a nice purchase. I want to say this thing ran for, I can't remember if it was $25 or $29, but it's sweet. I like it a lot. And before we wrap up, let's grab this again and just do a nice side-by-side comparison. I'm not sure if it's a happy coincidence or what, but it's amazing how this figure is almost the same size as the actual comic book cover. So that's really, really cool. Yeah, so I think this line has potential. Is it a perfect line? No, I could see some people being disappointed in this. But like I said at the beginning of the video, if you're like from my generation, and especially if you're a McFarlane collector from way back when, this might, you know, speak to you. You know, for me, this really is my jam. I do like the smaller, like McFarlane-esque statues as opposed to like the, you know, super articulated action figures. Don't get me wrong, stuff like this is amazing and it's great. But there's something about this style of toy that really pulls at my nostalgia strings. And it's nice. I like this a lot. All right, so with that being said, I hope you guys are doing well. If you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine yet in the theaters, do so. It's a phenomenal movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly. So until next video, be safe, take care of yourself, buy lots of toys, and most importantly, be happy. And I'll see you at the next one. All right, later.